Welcome to The Walk. I'm excited to be here again with another episode. And today is a very special day. I have a very close friend of mine. Her name's Heidi. I probably met Heidi. I have to introduce her before she even introduces herself, just because she plays a big role in my life. I met Heidi when I was a freshman in high school, is when I first met her. We became friends, but I really got to know Heidi even better because of my wife. And so her and my wife are sisters. I'm 43, so we're the ones doing the math there, though. So it's been a few years that I know her, and just such an amazing person, a great family friend, a great personal friend. I wouldn't have my youngest daughter if she was not an instrument used by God to be able to reach out, and so she was very instrumental in being able to help us out with Ava's adoption. I just wanted to make sure I set the platform so whoever's listening knows, like, this is someone who is very close and dear to my heart, to my family's heart. So Heidi, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, thank you so much, Josh, for saying that. Those kind words mean so much to me. And as you know, your family has been such an instrumental piece of my world, and I really attribute so much of my success as an adult really to you guys, and to especially to your wife, Kara.
She's pretty amazing.
She's amazing. So I really see her as my family, and you guys as my family, and I just tell her all the time that she is definitely sent to me from God. And
you're one of the most loyal people that I know. Like, extreme loyal. Yeah. Like, they go home in the backyard, kind of loyal.
Oh, shoot.
No. So tell us about you. No, metaphorically speaking.
So yeah, my name is Heidi Meliah, and I, like Josh said, we met back at Walla Valley Academy here locally, and he and I went to school together along with Kara, his wife, and one that I refer to as my sister. And I grew up here in Walla Walla. We moved here when I was in 5th grade. It was rough.
You came from like the west side?
Yeah.
You've been in Seattle area?
Yep.
Okay.
And we moved here after my mom had a kind of an ugly divorce, mm-hmm. and we came over here to be a part of the Adventist community, mm-hmm. where we were Seventh-day Adventists, and then from there, it was, like I said, those first couple years here in this valley were hard. In middle school, I pulled myself out of school and homeschooled for a couple of years, and then went to Milton State Land Adventist School, and that's when I met Kara. And from there, I'm just jumping right in, Josh. So
that's good.
About that, yeah.
No, we're doing good.
And I have 2 amazing boys.
And how are they?
My boys are 6 and 4.
And they are amazing boys, yes.
They are amazing boys. Really, I'm, again, just so blessed with my husband, Tim Meliah, and these 2 boys that we say are miracle boys.
Right, because at one point I imagine you probably didn't think you were going to have children.
Yeah, we had a hard time getting pregnant. We are older parents.
Well, that's relative though, right? Older.
Right, yeah, I'll say that. Yeah, but it was, we were definitely on the road to thinking that we may not have kids, and then we were blessed to get pregnant with Declan when I was 37, and then with Conan when I was 40. Yeah. So we feel so amazed by them.
You're like Wall Sarah.
Right.
You're not Sarah. You're not quite 90, no.
Yeah.
Miracle babies.
Yeah, miracle babies. So.
And where are you working right now?
So right now, I'm working at the Loft, which is a shelter for youth aged 12 through 17, and I'm the youth services administrator. And it's a nonprofit. It's a program, a part of Catholic Charities. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's again just such a blessing to be there and serving some of the most vulnerable youth.
A shelter for teens.
Yeah, a shelter for teens.
That's neat.
Yeah, last year we served 54 youth in the shelter. We served others that just didn't come in for various reasons, to addiction, to trauma, And so we serve more than that, but we serve 54 kids that spent several nights at the shelter, and our goal is to transition them from the shelter into permanent, stable housing.
Because they don't have a home.
Right, yeah. So parents are either struggling themselves with addiction or mental health, oftentimes both, and they just are unable to care for them. So sometimes we get Child Protective Services involved. Other times we get just amazing community members, teachers that take teens in. It really is such an amazing thing to see. Again, several other miracles that I get to observe almost daily.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Your heart's in it?
Yeah, it's very much in it. You know, like I said, when I was a teen, we moved here and we struggled with, addiction in my family, abuse, divorce, a lot of those childhood traumas, and I think God brought me children later in life because it took me years to work through some of that stuff. And it's not that you're healed forever. I still have, Josh, work through anxiety and depression daily. It's something that I have to work to manage so that I can go and do the things that I want to do. The things I want to do are so big. So it's like, I don't even like thinking about this talk today. I'm like, what do I want to focus on? Because I want to focus on ending youth homelessness, and I want to focus on generational trauma and like ending that and like stopping those cycles. And so like those are huge things, and I get discouraged by just the ignorance sometimes that I see around us about that stuff. So yeah.
Tell me how you got to where you are right now, this position that you're in, because it definitely has been an interesting process for me to watch from the outside. I definitely want to hear about it from you directly, because I've seen it, but I want to hear about it. And so tell me, how did you get to this position?
Yeah, so from this position, prior to this, I was working in community mental health, and I loved it. I have to give it to my dear friend, Nikki Sharp, got me into this, into that work, and started working with adults with severe mental health disorders, and worked really hard as a case manager, caseload carrying case manager for so many years.
When did that all start?
That started back in 2005. I'm sorry, 2005. And that was when community mental health was done with the county. And so it was a brand new experience for me. I lived in a home where mental illness existed and trauma existed. I had observed a lot in my life already, so I considered myself a survivor of a lot of that, coming out strong, coming out in a way that I didn't want to repeat those things. So I wanted to get into some sort of social service field, and I wasn't exactly sure what that looked like, and I really did not like school. So I didn't want to go on for my bachelor's degree. I was never a good student due to all this stuff at home, I would say now at this point, recognizing that. But I started in that field, and I worked really hard, and I just felt for these people. And so, I eventually was able to climb the ladder with only a bachelor's degree, and ended up managing an inpatient facility for a period of time.
Where did you end up getting your bachelor's degree from?
WSU, Washington State.
Washington State Cougars.
Yes,
go Cougars.
Go Cougars. So I did that online. Again, that classroom setting just wasn't conducive to the way that I learn. And so, I managed that inpatient facility for a period of time. And then, after 10 plus years in community mental health, sadly, just the support wasn't there that I was needing at that time. And a variety of other personal things going on.
Sure.
So I was blessed to have the opportunity to transition over to the loft and do what I'm doing now, which is also just amazing and aligns with the things that I want, which is to spread awareness and reduce the stigmas. And I want to help parents and community members realize the importance of communication and talking, especially with our younger generations, about the the troublesome things that this world brings. My husband and I always talk about this, and he talks about, not wanting to instill fear in our kids because they're so young, but I'm talking to them nonstop about about this stuff, and he's like, keep it age appropriate. And I completely agree, but the world is a scary place, so it is something to be afraid of sometimes.
Right.
So we both have strong personalities, as you know, so we can kind of go.
Right. I'm biased into that. I think education is good. I understand needs to be age is to be an issue, but there are certain things that we cannot shelter kids from, and they are going to expose one way or the other. So maybe they get my take on it or my perspective on it. And so I joke around because I'm like, my kids are going to be traumatized because they're like, every time we went to a party or went somewhere to the house, Dad's coaching us about who touched us where and who looks and what do you do, and we even role play. I'm like, hey, okay. I'm like, your uncle comes in and says this. Like, what do you say? No, and
right.
It's just unfortunately, it's the reality about the world that it's in. And because I practice medicine, I keep track of statistics.
Yeah.
And so it's happening.
Yeah.
Whether I'm aware of it or not, it's happening. And so I definitely would lean toward we teach them early that they know and understand. It's to their age,
for sure.
But things that are going on, even whether it's drugs or sexuality or just whatever different things like that, just it's a rough world. It's a tough.
World.
It's a very difficult. Yeah. Now, talking about that part, and I'm gonna go. I wanted to go back to when you were introducing yourself. You talked about. You said you pulled yourself and you did homeschool.
Yeah.
So tell me about that, because that and I know some about it, but that was you made a comment there, very like it was self-directed. It wasn't like imposed upon you. You said, no, I need to pull myself up.
Yeah.
Why?
I have so much admiration for my mom. My mom is a very strong woman, and I've learned so much from her and her work ethic. The reality is she, did the best that she could, and with breaking generational trauma and all of that, it's like each generation is going to get better, right? Mm-hmm. So my mom worked really hard and was out of the house a lot, supporting my brothers and I, and so she wasn't really around too much. So, and then she was picking herself up from the traumas of her ending of the relationships that she had in her marriage. So basically, I sort of was able to make decisions on my own a lot of the time, and I always kind of. From a young age, I had to figure it out, and if something wasn't going right, which school wasn't, I was a part of. I went to Rogers at that time. Again, my mom thought the best thing for us would be to keep us in these Adventist schools because of all. I don't really know why. She just a belief that she had, but we were the poor divorced kid. That's how, so we didn't fit in. And I know you and I have talked about this a lot because, the family that you've come from, you sometimes, especially 5th, 6th, 7th grade, you're an outsider. And it really started to just have a horrible impact on me. I got asked to leave the class a lot and put by myself in the hall or in a separate room, which the worst thing for a kid like me is to be put in a room alone without having somebody ask me, what's going on at home, There were a couple teachers growing up that made a big difference in my life, but more so not. And so by the end of 6th grade, I was just done. And so I started researching, which I say research, it wasn't like a Google. I didn't have a smartphone. But I started just calling on my landline phone, some different homeschool options. I think there was Country Garden or some other online, or not online, but homeschooling kind of curriculums. And so I did that, and I just went and got that, and I told my mom this is what I was going to do. And then I looked in the newspaper, and I found this full-time babysitting job. And so I started babysitting for this family and just doing my schoolwork and watching their little baby. Thinking about it now, it's just crazy. But I'd give my money to my household and help us buy food and pay the bills. And
you're in 6th grade, 7th grade.
Yeah, 6th, 7th grade.
Wow.
And then in the middle of 8th grade, I realized that I was really kind of falling behind. I think somehow I got that insight. I don't know. But so I.
Well, it sounds like you've had pretty good insight since the beginning.
Right. Well, yeah, but I not so much to the academic delays that would occur due to not having a teacher, and just myself and nobody really pushing me to do the work.
Sure.
So I fell behind, and when I went to school in 8th grade, I once again just didn't know anything. I mean, I would cheat off of people's papers. I just wasn't a good student. Like the normal mainstream way of learning just wasn't the way that I would retain the information. And so, but I ended up graduating from Milton State Land Adventist School in 8th grade, and then went to WAVA. And there too, like my grades were just terrible. And so,
what pushed you to stay in a system that you felt wasn't as beneficial for you?
Well, I mean, at that point, I don't know. I think it was just expected that, we went to high school, and WAHI or a public school wasn't an option per my mom.
Mm-hmm.
But really, it's like the WAVA just didn't have the resources. So I ended up skipping school a lot, and I would, I made a lot of bad choices in high school, and I barely passed.
Mm-hmm.
So then after that, I tried to go to college for a little bit, and then just stopped because it was too hard, and had a lot of, I think I was self-medicating a lot of alcohol use. And
you were going to college for like social services, mental health. What were you going at school first?
Originally I had no idea what I wanted to do, and so I just took some classes just because I knew I didn't want to end up like my mom, who always wanted a college education and didn't get it. And so she always talked about, that it would have been a lot different if she would have had her college degree. So I'm like, okay, I need to get that.
Right.
But I didn't really know what that entailed. And at that point in life for me, I was a mess. And so I just wasn't able to finish. And so when I was 19, I stopped, and I returned to college around 24, and then I got done when I was 26.
Yeah, but that's a much different student, the 23-year-old versus the 18.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least in my life, huge difference
totally.
student.
Huge, yeah. And I had gone to maybe a little bit of counseling at that point, but I was just doing a little bit better.
Sure.
Yeah.
So when you then talking about that, and then you bring it back to what you're currently doing, is it like therapeutic to work with children who you feel like I'm doing something for someone else that I wish maybe someone would have done? And not that I'm not saying you were not in need to shelter. I know you had a home and you had a family, so I'm not saying that at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that a lot of probably the children that you serve probably are also individuals that have felt like that no one has taken the time for them, and they're kind of just flowing along, or not really, or.
Yeah, I think that I don't relate to their homelessness, but a lot of the abuse and the sex abuse and the some of the neglect at times,
Sure.
I can sort of relate to, and am surprisingly at times triggered by, which I just manage that, and always want to encourage our youth to communicate and talk about that stuff, to again just break those cycles.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of sex trafficking that we have in this community and in our state, I had no idea of. I know the amount of child sexual abuse that happens, and how terrible that number continues to be. But the sex trafficking and kind of the difference with that is disgusting, really. And I don't understand how us as a society can't get a better handle on that.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of my career, I forgot to mention that I had worked for Department of Corrections as a probation officer, and I asked just to have a caseload of sex offenders, just to kind of get a better understanding of their mindset and them as individuals. I have this desire to be very non-judgmental, and no matter what the person is bringing to the table, I'm going to love like Jesus. And so that's my hope. And I don't understand a lot of the things that even now that the youth that that I see the things they're facing now is just so different than even when I was a kid. It's just, I have to work really hard to set my biases aside into my judgments and my belief system, because it's not about any of that. Their experiences and what they're exposed to in this world is just horrific sometimes. But yeah, the sex offender population is also just a whole other group that as a society we aren't managing well, you know, and it's a thing that they need support managing, and us ignoring it or talking badly about them is not going to help reduce victimization.
Right.
So I love doing that work. I would have probably stayed there, but it was during the years that the state was making cuts, and so I was the newest one hired and was facing a layoff, so I went back to community mental health. But I loved managing that caseload.
That's so interesting that you would like purposely, it's like you're talking about staring the palm right in the face. Like you said, oh, I want to work specifically with this population. You're crazy strong, and I think the people know you. I think because we know ourselves, and the way we feed ourselves, and we all have issues. But man, I think anyone who talks or knows you would say like Heidi's crazy strong, and not because obviously we talk about adversity, we talk about issues, but just who else is going to choose and say, you know, I'm actually going to choose a specific population because I want to have a better understanding, and I love how you threw in there and saying, you know, I want to love like Christ. How do you do that where you're at currently right now?
Yeah,
at the Loft?
Again, you know, we have a lot of various individuals that come through the Loft, the LGBTQ community, a high percentage identify, and some people that are gang involved. You know, sometimes I feel even afraid at times because they're so unpredictable. But I just try to, I pray a lot, and I've worked pretty hard in therapy just myself. So I don't see myself as strong. I see myself, I have my mom's drive, and I want to break those cycles, and I want my boys to have something different, and I've always wanted to be a mom. But I knew I didn't want to have the same experiences that I had for my kids. So I guess that's my motivation. But I certainly don't see myself as a strong person. So that's interesting. And I think if you really thought about it, you would probably like you're like, yeah, I see. I mean, because I definitely struggle. It doesn't come easy.
I think that people misconstrue, I think is the word.
Yeah.
Strength with not having issues. And strength, I think, is just about getting up one more time than you fell down. The Bible would say the righteous man gets up 7 times.
Yeah.
It's just not staying down. It doesn't mean
You're
that
right.
It's not a struggle. It doesn't mean that it's not difficult. It doesn't mean that that it just comes natural and it's a flow and strong. It's just it just means, yeah, you push on. Your drive, that drive you talk about, but you continue to drive through, push through. You could have said, well, you know, I had a significant difficulty with the school, and so therefore I just turned my back and never tried again. But you didn't. You tried it at 18, that didn't work out, then you came back at 23 and said, I'm going to try it again. When you were working with the population of, is it parole? Sorry, I don't know. Is it
Probation. Yeah.
Probation. Then you specifically chose the more challenging task, or what most people would avoid. You actually chose that head on. That was a decision. You made the decision to be homeschooled when you felt like at school wasn't working out well. And then you decided, you yourself made a decision to go back to school, even though you'd had a negative experience at school in 8th grade, because you're like, I'm getting behind academically. So to me, it's those constant, it doesn't mean it's not a battle, it doesn't mean it's not a struggle at all.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But you definitely don't stay down. You don't get hit and stay down.
Yeah.
You keep getting back up.
Yeah, there's periods of time that I have stayed down longer. that verse, the verse that I refer to regularly through my life, it's just simple because I can remember it even when I'm not feeling good, is I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Right.
So I mean, it's hard sometimes when you're really in the panic cycle or the anxiety, but if you can think about that, I can do all things, and God never said it would be easy, but I do believe that everything happens for a reason. So I don't know why a lot of things have happened to people, but I believe that there's some sort of reason. So that's kind of how I cope through stuff. And how I look at the kids at the loft is that each of them have a story, and it's not my place to judge them. And that's still a struggle that I have in church, is that the comments that are made about divorced people or about people that are gay or any of that stuff. I just have a really hard time with another human up front in this position of power and so much influence to talk about. Like, there's really no business, because you don't know who's in your audience, and you don't know how that's going to impact them. And I think, just with our youth, suicidal thinking and the number of people committing suicide these days, pastors and other people that are in leadership roles don't really realize the impact of their words sometimes. And I struggle with that.
When you talk about your verse, I'm not texting here, I'm looking up specifically the verse of Philippians you talk about. Because one of the things I've enjoyed in many of the sermons that I listen to that talk about it, they go back to chapter 12 or verse 12 before that. Because we hear it a lot in sports things, like everything over and winning and stuff. But in verse 12 it says, "I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want." And then he says, "Now I can do all things through Christ."
Yeah.
But it's not just like, oh, I get to the top and I get to celebrate.
Right.
Sometimes it's being
hard.
in the need and being in the hungry.
Yeah.
And then the opportunity that you have this job, which I think any job really could be very mission driven. It's all perspective. But where you are right now, you have like direct impact into these lives that you will probably never even see the outcome of it. But hopefully you talk about words having such a deep, so powerful, and we don't understand that. But hopefully some of the actions and the words that you're doing and your employees are doing right now, the goal, I guess, the hope would be is that they sprout fruit down the road at some point. Yeah. That helps someone, whether it's suicide, depression, anxiety, abuse, sex trafficking, allowing all those different things to happen in their lives. Hopefully, then gives them like, hey, there's another outlet, there's another way to go. Right. Because sometimes I don't know, right?
Yeah, definitely. I tell the staff all the time that, because it's hard work, it's sad work, and oftentimes we are transitioning our youth to a home that we hope is going to be a good situation, but a lot of unresolved outcomes, I would say, we don't really know for sure, and really we're just planting seeds, and we're being a positive role model. And then we do work to stay in touch, actually, so that, and we have had some youth that have come back and are serving now on what we created as an agency, Youth Action Board. And so it's a board made up just of youth that talk about youth homelessness and what they need and how they can be successful and all that. So we try to stay in their lives. But yeah, it's hard. Yeah.
How does a community support a program, or how does a community help with this problem?
I feel like probably the biggest support is to, again, just communicate with your kids, kindness, acceptance, and the kids at the loft, they go to our schools, and so just like Kara and you opened your arms to me back in middle school and high school, and looked past some of the craziness that I brought. And
I don't think you're giving much credit to the craziness that I brought.
Well, yeah,
let's be clear.
But I feel like if you can have support from your community, even they say one adult can change the course for these kids. Open your home, communicate with your kids, be non-judgmental, be open to hearing their story. Yeah, I think that's the biggest one. There's a long list, I'm sure, of things that the community can do to support. We're always in need of foster homes and teens and all of that, but this isn't about marketing for the left necessarily. I'm not going to leave my Catholic Charities Venmo account, but yeah. But I think just teaching kindness to that generation can be super helpful.
What do they need to be listened to? Time? That someone cares?
Yeah. Pay attention, say hello, listen to them, hear their story, invite them over for dinner.
You said it's pretty hard, sad sometimes. Or heartbreak, I forget what the word you used, that the word can involve.
Yeah, I have so many times gone home after work and just asked him if we can adopt one of these 15, 16-year-old kids. Some of them just have such an impact on my heart, and I realized that if they had what I'm so fortunate to have at this time in a home like that, and love, and just that kind of attention, which every teenager deserves, their life would be different. At this time, it's not something that we're able to do with this population, but it's certainly something that we are talking about. But just going through, like you and Kara did, the DCYF system, there's such a shortage of foster homes in this area for teens. People want to adopt babies. People want to foster young kids, but teens, they're just looked at much differently. And it's, there's a lot of finger pointing and them making like poor choices. And again, I feel like as adults and as a society, we are failing them. They're still developing, and they don't have the resources and support that they need for that. So that results in these choices that we see. So I try to have a lot of grace for the poor decisions that I see, and give lots of chances. And I understand the reality of people having that in their home. It just doesn't work sometimes, and they don't want to put other children in a risky situation, and there are risks that can come with that. So I feel so blessed again to be a part of the Loft, where I can have this experience and still have a part in their world.
I was just having a talk with one of Ethan's coaches, and every time I talk to a teacher who I feel like their heart is in it, I say thank you, because I know for me, I was definitely a child that required the visionaries to see that child was going to mature at some point, and not to write me off, but to hang in there, because I did turn around, or I did make better. I'm not saying that these children need to turn around. I'm not trying to. It's not about that. Please, I hope I'm not taking it out of context. I'm just saying that sometimes we do make bad choices. And he described it. He's saying, hey, they're still developing. Like these are just kids. I look back, I see 20-year-olds at 43. I see 20-year-olds getting married, and I realize, oh, they're kids. And I was 23 when I got married. I realized that, but I didn't have the insight. I had no idea at 23. I had a grasp at that time, but at 43, I have a much different perspective. And I'm like, oh wow, I realized a lot about life. And so it's how much more for these teenagers who then, not only are they that age, but then they're there because a lot of times, not all the times, the environment that they came from already put them at a disadvantage.
Right.
And so some of the coping mechanisms that we have developed as either growing up or some people were taught to them by their parents, others just developed it along the road. They don't have any, they don't know any different. They just react to life. I just wanted to whole rant there. Not really leading anywhere.
It's true. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about that. I'm thinking too of just ways that the community and people like you and I can support. And I appreciate what you say about that teacher, that you really want to give like a genuine thank you to, because I felt that way too about different teachers just in my adult life that I've seen that just their heart is in it. It's like you as a provider, it's like you can tell when you sit with you in an appointment that your heart is in it, and you can see the difference between those people that are just kind of, well, maybe they have other things going on. I don't know. Again, I don't want to pass judgment, but you can just see that. And again, we are all human, so it's not like we're expecting perfection. And like I've mentioned, I have anxiety, sometimes, and I think that can be misinterpreted for other things. But really, I'm so stuck in my head, and so it's not that I'm not in it that day. I'm just panicking about something that's probably really stupid. But,
or something that's very serious, like having someone following you with a weapon
right.
and having to call the cops.
Right. That was
it's not all.
It's not always in my head, but yeah. So I think giving people grace, but just I think as adults being mindful of the influence that we have on younger people and the look that we have on our face when we engage with them, and just acceptance and understanding that this is a different generation and we are not always going to understand it. But again, I don't know that Jesus understood all I'm sure he did, Jesus, but he loved everybody regardless.
Right.
And so as humans, we don't get to pass judgment on another person's life or their choices or anything, really. We love, accept, and we do us. We do our own stuff. So I think that's the biggest thing that the community can do is just be nice.
Right. It sounds so simple, but I think it's so. That is it. I think a lot of times it's so easy to be so absorbed into our lives and what I want for me and what I want for my group, and that's all I'm going to worry about. And then I just kind of walk through life that way. As Christians, though, I have a higher, based upon my beliefs, I have a higher level of responsibility to my neighbor.
Right. Yeah, it's to stretch yourself and break out of that circle that you're talking about, that you're comfortable in. And even though maybe you don't agree with homosexuality, or maybe you don't agree with the divorced person or the person that's cheating on their spouse, the reality is each of them have a story, and they come in, they are coming from so many different environments and backgrounds and etc. And so it's not our job to come to these conclusions and make all these assumptions and then to outcast them. That's the last thing that those people need.
Right.
So that's what I mean by being nice. There's so many layers to that, and I realize I make it.
No, but that is the right. That really is it. Is be nice.
Yeah,
we're supposed to be in the world, not of the world, but in the world.
Right. Yeah.
So I can't stay in my own little community.
I
can't just believe in and everybody walks around like we're making a difference. Like, what's going on with my neighbor? What's going on with the people who are suffering and hurting? And it just, for me, that's very dear to my heart. Is and some of these terms I know can be kind of buzzwords and people get upset, but those who are marginalized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, just my heart, and not just heart, like, I want to do I actually actions put behind it? Do I actually do something? Am I in some way involved in my community to help those individuals that are marginalized in whatever different, whatever facet you want to call it?
Right. Yeah. Or am I just sitting and talking about it, and
Right.
most likely talking not very nice about it.
Right.
When I get to, I feel so privileged to have heard some stories from some youth that come in transgender, and hear some of their background of coming out and their lives, and it's just filled with pain and trauma and just like adults failing them one after another, and the last thing they need is a person that's a churchgoer talking poorly about them or that community.
Right.
And so I can get pretty heated about all of those topics, just because I've been so honored to hear some of those big things that are so personal. For me, I think coming from the Adventist world too, and from those religious worlds where they're all secrets, so many secrets. We don't talk about stuff, and even this, as Josh, how many times have you asked me to come have a conversation, and then Karen uses the word, oh, I want to hear your testimony. It's like, I don't want to tell my story. It's like, my story is like, it's like supposed to be a secret, it's like, and I'm out to I want to help people. I don't want to talk about myself. But I think, stretching ourselves and just having an openness is important. It's important to grow. It's important to be vulnerable sometimes, and to challenge even yourself with your thought process. And if you don't feel good after the conversation, then maybe it wasn't a good one to be having.
I might ask you when we're all done here how you feel about this.
No, this has been great. It's the first time that I've shared a lot of these personal things, and I'm very sensitive to my family's feelings and to just people in the community and just the feelings of others, and so I never want to offend anybody. And also, again, it's that I'm a pretty private person. So.
Sure. So what would you share? Yeah.
I think that, well, for one, you've asked me several times. I'm just kidding. I think there is, I've listened to other people's testimonies, and there have been some that have been really helpful to me, and I just think that there's power in that sometimes. I don't want to be like a whiner, and complaining or stuck in my past. But I do think that there's some relevance to some of the choices that I've made as an adult. And I'm, at this point, it's like it hasn't been easy to work through some of the things through my life and some of those childhood traumas, but it's made me who I am today. And so for that, I want to give credit for, I guess. It's like I never would wish upon others some of the things that I went through, but again, it's allowed me experiences now as an adult that hopefully I'm making a difference in others' lives. So I'm not sure. I don't know. I think I'm not really sure why. Sure.
I think for me, when I think about it, is I think we undervalue what other people see and what we see. There's a difference there. Because I do think, specifically in your situation, I'm going to go back to the being strong, not because you haven't had adversity, not because you don't have challenges, not because of any of those issues, but because that's what people see. And so, as the person that needs it, someone who has anxiety, someone who can, spin in my head and just kind of get stuck in that, to see that someone else who is making a difference, is turning and with no disrespect, turning generational issues, and ending things, who has first adversity but is still able to do that. That's motivating, and I think that's where the vulnerability can be very beneficial in a community when we do talk and we do share and we talk about those things, because then I'm not alone. It's not just me facing this issue, if that person would have encountered this and this, and maybe they'd know. Well, no, actually, they have encountered those issues, and we can affect our perspective, and so rather than choosing to sit in it and to fall victim, saying what can I do to be able to move forward, and I think that part can encourage other individuals. And that's my perspective, at least, from someone who has made tons of mistakes and just being, wow, like if there's so much grace for me, and because of my beliefs in Christianity, when you talk about some of those things that led you through and those changes and the homeschool, or to homeschool first and then back to school and those things, and then school, I would view them as saying those were God-given talents, and even God guiding you early in it on. Obviously, there was negative things that have happened in life, but not so, and I'm not saying it's His will at all for your life. I don't agree with that at all. But even in the midst of that, Him providing provision, and then going to your verse in Philippians again. So I know what it is to be hungry. I know what it is to be in need, but I can do all things through Christ. And so, at least in my life, I feel like so many times He's led me, He's guided me, without even me knowing I was being led. I wasn't sitting there praying and asking God, please give me a direction. It was only His provision through 100% grace, because I wasn't even looking for it or asking for it. And then I look back and I'm like, wow, you actually did. Like, you guided me, you protected me on where I'm at right now. Yeah. And I think about your two beautiful boys. If you can say beautiful, I'm an ESL guy, so can you say beautiful? Is that all right? Beautiful, but your family, and just the difference you're making in the community, and you have as we talked about it, through your different in your career, you have been a champion for different individuals who have been marginalized, or who were born in a disadvantage already, or faced some kind of disadvantage, whether it was mental health or whether it was in the probation officer, but all these different situations. These are individuals who are having it harder in life, and that, like, I love it how your heart has been that way, and you've been that champion for individuals, and so you may not feel like you're strong, but when we needed someone at 1 in the morning or 11 o'clock at nighttime to go to Walmart and take a letter from an attorney so we could try to get the adoption done for our daughter. Yeah. You never hesitated on that. Yeah. Or maybe you did. If you did, you didn't tell us.
There was never a hesitation. Yeah. Yeah, I think part of sharing today too helps me. I feel like there's been years of shame too, that ongoing carrying burdens of ownership of, the things I've been through, and my fault, and all those things that the devil just leaves there. And I realize how much I want to reduce the stigma, and working with kids now and seeing the impact directly is so hard, but I'm also recognizing that I'm adding to it by not being more open. So, within my role, of course, I don't share my personal experiences with the youth, and that's not the venue for that. But there's no reason why I can't be a little bit more open about this kind of stuff, like in these kinds of settings. And I think that will help again with reducing the stigma. I don't want to normalize, because I want to get to some of these things not being the normal. But I do want people to have awareness and talk to their kids.
Right.
Yeah.
I like how you talked about shame, because that's something that I know I have had a struggle with, and I think a lot of us, the reality is just we do. And I just wonder, when you talk about your population and how big of a role shame plays in that, and how different their life could be if we lift that shame, which is only put on there by the devil 100%, because Christ died for all of us.
Right, exactly.
And so, I as clean as I think I may look, I'm dirty.
Right.
I am.
Just as dirty as
and like Paul,
else.
Paul, I would say I am the dirtiest of them all, the biggest sinner of them all.
Yeah.
But the devil, though, using that shame to keep a distance, and to just keep us down.
Yeah.
And so we have nowhere to go because of shame. And what would happen, and just the difference we would see, I think, in people and community, if we helped with that shame.
Right. Yeah, so in that, I'm just determined to push through some of my own discomfort, and just try to have an openness and a willingness that when someone like you asks to share, that I say yes, and that it's not all about me, that maybe this will benefit somebody out there in a positive way, or help them see something a little bit differently, and be helpful. I don't know.
Right.
But
I don't think God's a wasteful God. I don't think He gives us things for it to just go to waste. And it's not just for me. I am a huge believer in that this right, it cannot be about me. And that's something that I want to try to remind myself, is that this is not the end destination.
Right.
So this journey is not about me. I think I can enjoy it. I'm not trying to say that I not enjoy it, but I am going to be held accountable in my perspective. I'm talking about anyone else. I'm not being judgmental, just for me.
Yeah.
Like, what did I do with the talents I was given? What did I do with the resources I was given? What did I do with all those things that he gave me? And then did I use them? And not just so I could have a good ride.
Right. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to use our gifts, and I know that the devil is working against us, and I do believe that that's a lot of the anxiety, but it's real. So
right.
I don't care for that. I do believe in the power of prayer, but I don't care for the sayings, like the pray away the mental illness, and pray away, it's like that stuff's real, and it needs meds sometimes, or it needs interventions otherwise sometimes, but
wisdom given to us by God.
Right, it wasn't, and I work hard to power through that stuff, and that's why I decided that now is the time to share.
Thank you.
And absolutely, I just so appreciate this podcast too, and listening to your prior ones. They've all been super helpful to me in different ways, and I appreciated the variety of people that you've had. From Christina to the person, I don't remember his name now, but the social worker and the veteran, but they've just all been really good and super helpful. I find it to be useful in my life. So
I think that's what God had envisioned. This is not anything I've orchestrated, and I had no idea, so I'm just trying to step out. And purely faith and be like, whatever.
About it, I was like, what? Like, that's amazing. But it's not something that you've been talking about for years, or like, I was like, what? That's so random.
Well, it is random.
But
God had a plan. No, it is random.
It's like I've prayed so much for you with the long COVID stuff, and I try to think like, why for you? It's like, but maybe this is part of it, it's like it's changed your life completely. And so I do have to believe that this podcast and putting it in here is a part of that.
100%. Yeah, no, God has blessed my life tremendously through this whole long COVID stuff. And so I don't like to talk about it, as I'm sure you don't, it's just nobody likes to talk about their weaknesses and their issues, and I'm not going to sit around and want to be licking my wounds, although I do sometimes have moments to sit around, and I do tell God how I really wish it would just go away. And I'm really not enjoying this, But on the other hand, I think that I've been able to witness His hand and His blessing in my life tremendously. This has been something that's been born of it, and if it's going to encourage someone. I can guarantee it's going to encourage someone, because I see the effect. I keep the data on how people are listening and someone's following it. But even if it was just one person, and that one person at this point has blessed me, sitting here and listening to, I guess it can't be 16 because Kara was twice and I was one, so 14 different individuals who have shared their story. It encourages me that if God can do that, man, He can do something through me. And so you just try to show up and you do the best you can, and He'll take care of the rest.
He is, Josh. He's working through you.
No, I don't mean to have this conversation talk about me. I'll turn to talking about me.
But
thank you. I appreciate it.
Credit for that, because you have also just been such an amazing support to me in my world. So I appreciate this opportunity to be on your podcast and to feel a little stretched. And go outside of my comfort zone. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
When I asked, was the Philippians verse the verse that you had brought today?
Yep, that's the verse. So no matter what I'm going through, it's just something I can always just easily remember, and it's just been so true in my life that no matter what it is, I can do it with God.
Do you remember a time when you felt that verse started to mean more to you? Is it something just now in life you look and you say, oh, I really enjoy it, I really like it, or was it something that you felt, no, actually even early on in life maybe you meant something to me?
Yeah, early in life, I would say my first bout of depression in high school. I think I
remember that verse?
I found that, yeah, I found
Wow.
that verse to be helpful. I don't remember how it was introduced, if it was in a Bible class,
Sure.
or what, but I do remember it being something that helped dig me out of that.
Praise God.
Yeah, so it's been something that I've leaned on for a long time. And there's, lots of other amazing things in the Bible, but that's just one that I've used over and over and over again. I've got so many random fears and stupid things that I get stuck on, and that's just one that I can it's just like, the repeat in my head.
Yeah, grounds you as a mantra.
Yeah.
If I can use that, I'm not sure. Maybe I should know more about what mantra means. But if it's the same thing that you repeat over and over, right, in your head.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you very much, Heidi. I appreciate it. And then to anyone that's listening, if you find this encouraging, please follow us on Facebook, share, share the podcast. This is a pure ministry, and the goal is just to be able to share stories from different individuals who can show the power of what God's doing in their lives. So thank you, and God bless you.